Hello, and welcome to the 2024 Presidential Race Review. I'm your host, Lisa Schiffren. I'm a former Republican speechwriter, and with me is David Eisenbach, presidential historian at Columbia University. David, how does the race look to you? Too close to call? Trump ahead? Harris ahead?
The race is tight. That shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone. The real clear national average has it in Kamala's favor slightly, but when you look at the state-by-state breakdown, seem to be trending for Trump.
Yeah, I keep seeing Trump ahead on the major issues, whereas Kamala is ahead on issues like unity and education and joy.
Right. So, and this is where it gets really tricky because right now the game is for those swing voters, the undecideds who somehow have not chosen a candidate.
It's hard to imagine what they're waiting for.
What are they waiting for, right? But who are not really committed to issues. They're not really interested. They're more interested in their feelings and how are they feeling about the state of the country at this moment. So they're the ones that are really bouncing around the polls.
So it's too close to call.
It's too close to call. Although, as I mentioned, when you start to actually look at the states and how the individual states in the Electoral College are trending, it seems to be heading in Trump's favor.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Is her unwillingness to be interviewed and to be clear about her policies going to hurt Kamala Harris with her voters? It won't help, but how much does it actually hurt?
Well, that's the big question. And again, if we're dealing with a tiny margin, right, between these swing voters who are not policy driven, is personality enough? And I think her campaign is making the right choice. Let's go down that strategy, right? Let's go with personality. Let's hope that they feel more comfortable with her than they do with him, which is a legit possibility.
Sure.
And that will take us over the top.
Well, it's clear they feel more comfortable with her because, I mean, there are a lot of people who clearly hate Trump.
Yes.
Trump has people who love him and people who hate him, and there's not much in between.
There's not much in between. And even those who are like, okay with him on the issues, like you mentioned before, people who might be anti-migrant, for example, they still feel as though, the drama of Trump, the annoyingness of Trump, he still rubs people the wrong way.
You know, he hasn't been as articulate in some ways as he might be. I keep hearing this criticism.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's been as annoying as he was either. I think there's been much less drama this time around.
I think you're right. And I think that, that hurt him in the debate. Because I think he was trying to be normal in the debate. And I think she got under his skin. I think he reacted. He kind of got frazzled. I think he has made a mistake to not want to debate her again. What do you think about that?
I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I didn't think he did as well as he should have done in that debate. So not doing it again makes sense.
Except he lost. He's going to let her walk away with a victory on the debate?
She has more to gain from a second debate than he does.
Do you think so?
I do, because she's so interview averse. She's so media averse that any big exposure like that works for her if she's even moderately competent, which she was. So I didn't think she was great, and I thought there was a fair amount of obfuscation, but I thought that it definitely worked in her favor. She didn't lose.
Oh, no doubt. And her interviews are pretty consistently bad.
They're bad. They're just so bad.
I mean, even somebody who likes Kamala knows she's not a great interview.
I don't know why that would be, because she's done this her whole life. She ought to know her policies.
Yeah. And it's not like they're aggressive, antagonistic interviews.
No, they are the friendliest interviews you've ever seen.
Yeah. My advice is keep on going for the personality and see if you can win a squeaker for Kamala Harris right now.
What more do you think her campaign should be doing?
I'm not sure there is much more. I mean, what really concerned me, and should concern Democrats, is the hurricane in Georgia. and the failure to go down there, Biden's failure to go down there, Harris's failure to go down there, that means a lot, particularly to swing voters, particularly those facing a really cataclysmic destruction
Disaster.
in many areas. You have to make the effort. We saw this with George W. Bush with Katrina. We saw how Barack Obama with Superstorm Sandy made a big effort. And, you know, the fact is that a president going down into a disaster zone doesn't really help the people in the disaster zone, but it's an important signal and message that I'm there with you.
Right? It makes it look as if the relief is going to come faster and things are going to get done and things are a priority.
And
it's,
if you don't show up,
well,
it
and
makes you look
Kamala
like you're
being at fundraisers in Hollywood is kind of the absolute wrong signal to send when people are kind of dying on rooftops.
and Biden being at the beach.
Biden being at the beach, you know, that was classic. It's a little late for beach season in Delaware. That was actually kind of shocking when I heard that's where he was.
Well, believe me, if he were still running for president, I think he would have been down in Georgia. But what does he have to lose? These people pushed him out. What is he going to give up a beach weekend?
It's all true. It's all true. Although he claims he was on the phone the whole weekend.
Yeah, but and
He
let me just
probably
say,
was on the phone a little bit.
Right, and the fact of the matter is, a president can do a lot more from the Oval Office on the phone that he can possibly do on the ground.
No, that's
Not
true.
to mention, you've got first responders and security that have to be dedicated to your protection that should be helping people.
But you know, organizations, entities in the government do not run themselves.
Yeah.
They need prompting and they need pushes. They need to be told what to do. And the fact that nobody's doing that, the fact that Biden has no incentive to do that, and Kamala didn't feel that she should step in and act presidential, I thought that was actually a little weird. Like, not seeing this as an opportunity to look like you're in charge and you've got this, what it takes to actually make something happen. That was a kind of an unforced error.
This is the one of the primary sort of lessons of politics is that every crisis is an opportunity, right? You take
Right,
that crisis
exactly.
and you go down there if you're Kamala and you be the president and make yourself look presidential. If the president isn't going to do it, you got to play the part, right? You know, Donald Trump goes down there and he's playing the part.
Yeah,
right?
he brought
You don't
lots
have
of
to be
aid.
president to pretend like you're president.
No, that was great. He's not president, but he was president, and he acted like he was president.
There it is.
It was great. Trump speaks frequently without teleprompters, unlike Kamala. He is interviewed regularly. Is this helping him, or is it just expected so he gets no bounce from it?
I don't think anybody's sort of impressed by it anymore, but I think it's part of his authenticity. He also can say things which are totally wacky too, because he's not on the teleprompter. I do think it's good when he's giving a foreign policy speech, he's on teleprompter, because he understands that when you say
Rigor, a little rigor.
on a foreign policy, things get translated and there are consequences to words. So that's where Trump goes down. Although, I got to be honest with you, I find Trump's speech when he's on the teleprompter very boring.
Do you?
Yeah, I find them very, very boring. I much prefer that. I find them more entertaining when he's just going off on his various...
His riffs, yeah. No, those are definitely more entertaining. But, you know, you have to actually, as a speechwriter, I will say, it takes a certain amount of actual concision to get out the points that need to be gotten out in any speech where you're trying to convey what you really mean and what you're going to do and what you want to see happen. So good that he sticks to the teleprompter, that somebody stocked with an actual speech. But
especially on foreign policy.
especially on foreign policy. How is the Trump campaign doing? What else should he be doing?
What should Trump be doing? I think more talking about the economy would be the thing to do. I think this economy is heading down. I think it's trending down. So if he could get out in front of that, so much the better. I think that people are feeling the pain. Maybe not Wall Street people, right? Maybe not New York City people or San Francisco people, but the people that are going to decide this election in those swing states, he would be talking to them.
No, I agree. I think that most of the country is actually having a hard time with cash flow.
Yes.
And I certainly think that the people who go to his rallies feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But he does talk about the economy. We barely hear it, but he talks about what he did last time, about cutting taxes, about cutting regulations, about getting energy going, growing faster.
I was more like on the state of the economy right now. You sort of show that
More
empathy.
analysis?
Like, I understand that there's pain out there right now, right? That kind of emoting. Again, we're going for those swing voters that want to feel like somebody's hearing them. That would be the move. I know this is not an easy thing for Trump, empathy, but if he could show a little bit or at least pretend to be it, then I think it would go a long way for him. That's what I would recommend.
How much of an issue is the open border? It's
Yeah.
clearly causing problems in cities and towns across the country. Can people trust Harris to change this policy when the Biden-Harris administration caused it?
I think that Trump wins on that issue of the border. And I think that there's a lot of resentment when we start to look at numbers in the Black community and in the Latino community. Trump's going to do very well in both communities. And both
With
those
men.
communities.
With men. I don't know about with women.
I think he's going to do better than any Republican has ever done in both those communities, with men and women, but particularly with Black and Latino men. And the issue of migrants is huge, because we have to remember, if we look at Chicago right now, and we look at the violence on the streets, the gang wars, this is becoming a serious crisis, which if you're in Chicago, you definitely feel it.
Yeah, I think these statistics that came out this week about the 600,000 migrants with criminal records and 13,000 homicides and 12,000 rapists, these are devastating. I can't imagine anybody hearing that and feeling even remotely comfortable about it.
That's right. And if we look how cities, including New York City, are handling it, they tend to be pushed into poorer neighborhoods. And that generates a tremendous amount of resentment for longtime residents in these neighborhoods who have done all the right thing, who are working hard to pay the bills, and now their neighborhoods are the ones that get the impact of migrants. And so that will definitely be a backlash against the Biden administration and Harris.
I guess that's right. Do you think that anything Harris has done, like going to the border, has convinced anybody of anything?
I'm not sure going to the border means anything anymore. It's almost like a cliche, maybe at the beginning of the crisis, but it almost seems like it's just performative. So that's not going to do it. If there were some sort of initiative that the Biden administration were pushing to address it, and not just a matter of, let's deport them all, but maybe in some sort of humane way, certainly in a way that would provide some aid to the cities that are shouldering this burden. I think that would be very helpful, particularly in swing states like Colorado. Denver is having a tremendous migrant issue. And so I think that politically that would be a very smart move.
Well, and as we've all learned, there are small towns across the country that have 60,000 residents and 20,000 migrants.
That's right. And again, just getting back to the debate, when Donald Trump says stupid things about migrants eating dogs, it's like taking away from the issue and the argument that he could be making on this and scoring points with many voters. Anytime you get into these criticisms about people, it's just bad news. Stick with the issues, stick with the economics, stick with the consequences that this is having to all communities.
Well, I think that
that's the place where Trump
that
should
story, as it was explored by the media, all of which was hostile to Trump.
Yes.
It still made the point that this town that was not doing that well because it had had a loss of factories over the last many years and jobs, was dealing with 25% of its population in migrants. And that's very expensive to deal with. It's very hard to deal with. There's no room. it's not in the least bit obvious how you accommodate children who speak Creole, Haitian in your public schools.
That's right. And this is where, again, how you solve this is something sort of beyond our conversation. But politically, if you were to provide federal aid programs that then help them get to work, if we could really get into fixing the visa issues, this is a big influx in a very short period of time. There's always going to be a shakeout.
There are those who say it's 20 million people.
But if people are just being kind of dumped, this is not humane.
No, it's not humane.
And it certainly isn't helpful to both the migrants and the communities around them.
We are about to take a break. Please come back, and we will continue our conversation. Thank you. Welcome back to the 2024 Presidential Race Review. I'm your host, Lisa Schiffren, former Republican speechwriter, and with me is David Eisenbach, presidential historian at Columbia University. And David, we were just talking about economics in the political race.
Right.
David, back to the economy for a minute. Will cuts in taxes and regulation and boosts in energy production actually fix the inflation problem that's affecting so many middle and working class Americans?
No, the inflation is here to stay for a while. The Fed pumping in trillions of dollars on their balance sheet into the economy. And of course, we have these massive deficits. Right?
Massive deficits.
And by the way, it's not just Biden. It was also Trump. And
Trump's a spender.
The course correction is going to be a lot more involved than that. And I think part of our problem, too, is if we're heading into a recession and we also have inflation, we got stagflation, we're looking at a 1970 situation, which both these two, Harris and Trump, want to be president of the United States, it's going to be a tough 4 years.
Well, that's depressing. Harris thinks that the answer is to go after gougers.
Yeah.
What do you think the right solution is?
Well, going after gougers isn't going to do it. The right solution is you really have to restrict spending. You'd have to also jack up interest rates again. We've already started cutting interest rates because fears of going into recession. I believe we're already in a recession. Either way, you're going to be jacking up rates in the middle of a recession, which will make things worse. And this is the stagflation situation that I'm talking about. But the only way to get out of it is something like a Paul Volcker-esque big increase in rates.
It'd be interesting to see who both of these candidates want to nominate as Treasury Secretary and to hear from that person, because this is actually the key issue to the entire race.
You know, honestly, I'd love somebody who is a CEO of a manufacturing corporation. I know that'll never happen. It's got to be a banker. But somebody who actually knows how to maintain American jobs, producing products, that's what we need to get back to.
Well, there are very few CEOs of manufacturing companies who have been maintained their jobs.
I know, and then many of these CEOs are just there to boost the stock price and get their bonus. But if you could find...
No, there are clearly some, because there are still some jobs, but everybody seems to be heading to Mexico.
Yeah, yeah.
Ukraine's Prime Minister Volodymyr Zelensky met with Donald Trump last week after going campaigning at an arms factory with Kamala Harris. Trump claims he can end the war in Ukraine with calls to Zelensky and Putin. Can he? Will Zelensky give up territory for peace?
I don't think Zelensky's going to have any choice because, you know, he doesn't have the troops to take back what he's lost. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. So there is going to have to be a deal. There is going to have to be a trade-off of territory. What was interesting this week on the presidential campaign was everybody coming to New York. Trump's in New York, and there is this meeting of Trump and Zelensky. How do you think that meeting kind of rolled out politically?
I thought it looked a little awkward, but
Awkward, yeah.
better than it could have been, given that Zelensky had trashed Trump to the media the day before. Zelensky seems a little unsophisticated there. And Trump clearly believes that his leverage is with Putin.
Yeah. And for Trump, if I'm thinking about how am I going to get a peace deal, I've got to have a relationship with both these guys, right? Because I'm going to have to be able to get them both in a room. So I think it made sense for Trump to meet with Zelensky. But ultimately, Zelensky is not going to get an escalation of the war under Trump, I don't believe. Like, that's what Trump is saying anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And
he's lost so many people. Ukraine is in such a tough situation that you would think he would be interested in ending the war, but he doesn't seem to be.
And in fact, he's calling for Biden to escalate the war, giving him permission to use these long-range missiles.
Which is a disastrous idea.
Potentially apocalyptic.
Right. Okay. Let's start World War III.
You know,
how should we do that? We'll send missiles into Russia.
So I'm not sure who that helps, and I don't think it helps the Ukrainian people either.
Right, I agree with you. But Zelensky seems a little stubborn.
He's stubborn and he's stuck. He's not entirely in charge, right? I know he hasn't faced an election in a long time, and elections are not on the horizon for him. But you know, there's a group around him, so and they're definitely pushing him in the more aggressive fashion. What did you think of Eric Adams this week and this whole Trump kind of supporting Eric Adams in his indictment with the Justice Department?
You know, I think Trump is right about this. I think Trump said that when he saw Eric Adams standing back and pushing back against the Biden administration because of the migrants, he knew that Adams would be indicted. And in fact, Adams has been indicted on pretty flimsy grounds.
Yeah. These are campaign finance violations, which, if you know anything about New York City politics, they're everywhere. There are very few New York elected officials.
You can always get somebody on.
You can always, because people don't understand, right? You're getting so much money, and especially if you're a big candidate, from so many different people, like tiny contributions. And you've got a treasurer who sometimes has not even been a treasurer before, handling all this. Mistakes get made, things get overlooked, and So a campaign finance violation is not the end of the world, and it's never prosecuted. Certainly not with a federal indictment.
And if it were going to be prosecuted, Bill de Blasio should have been prosecuted.
Right. Bill de Blasio, guilty of so much pay-to-play corruption that was blatant. And what are we looking at here, right? In the case of the Turkish embassy to the UN, this is a major building project for the UN. That's a very important contributor to New York and its economy. This was a kind of a prize for Turkey, and it's something that New York should be embracing. So when the mayor's office makes some phone calls to expedite things, there's nothing unusual about that.
Right, I think that's normal.
It's normal.
In a bureaucratic situation like this. I also think Eric Adams should not have taken all the free hotel rooms. But
again, not something that gets indicted.
Right, it's just not that big a deal. It's not, it doesn't strike me as real corruption.
No. Not in the context of New York City and the previous experiences of mayors.
And he's right that the migrant situation in New York City is a disaster. It's very, very expensive. It takes up a lot of space. It gets in the way of the city functioning normally.
It's definitely contributed to crime, and if we do see a serious downturn in terms of stock prices and real estate values, New York City is going to have a major budget hole. And the migrant crisis is going to make it very difficult for the mayor to maintain the budget. So I get exactly what he was saying. And what he was asking for was help from the federal government. And honestly,
the federal government can afford this.
The federal government can afford this. And New York City contributes a tremendous amount of tax money to the federal government. For us to finally get some of that tax money back, I think would be the right thing. And that's what Adams was trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think he alone, among all of the mayors of big blue cities in the country, actually had the nerve to say this. And he is being punished for it.
That's his argument. And I think he's got a legitimate questions about selective prosecution on this case.
We've got to wrap up now, but so I'm going to take away, and it makes me so happy that you think Trump is leading.
Well, no, this is the real clear politics average. This is just the numbers, not me.
Okay, not you. All right, thank you so much, David.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Good night. Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
I'm your retirement fear, but don't be scared. You're still in pre-tirement.
Does that mean I have more time to plan?
Precisely. This is pretirement.org.
This isn't scary. I'm doing it.